During the Civil War, a clever rebel leader named John Mosby and his men rode through Virginia at night, surprising Union soldiers when they least expected it. But here's the exciting part. Mosbys Raiders didn't just fight battles. They also took valuable treasures like gold coins, silver plates, family jewels, and more. The fog lay thick over the Virginia countryside that autumn morning, just like it had on many days during the bloody war that divided America. Out of that mist came a legend, a man whose name would be feared and respected. They called him the Gray Ghost, and his story contains one of the greatest mysteries of the Civil War era. But have you ever wondered what happened to treasures lost during times of conflict? What secrets might still lie buried beneath our feet, waiting to be discovered? This is the tale of one such treasure and the extraordinary man who hid it. John Singleton Mosby, born in 1833 to a modest Virginia family, grew up with a really sharp mind. Small in stature, standing just 5 feet 8 inches and weighing barely 140 pounds, and he was a warrior. As a young man, he suffered from poor health and spent much of his time with books rather than outdoor pursuits. Yet Mosby had something that would make him a formidable opponent, and that was an unconventional mind. As tensions rose between North and South, Mosby actually opposed secession. He believed that the Union should remain intact, but when Virginia left the Union in 1861, Mosby faced a choice that many Americans of his time confronted. They had to either follow their state or follow the federal government. Like many Virginians, his loyalty to his home state prevailed. But what drives a man to transform from a quiet lawyer into one of the most feared leaders in American military history? The early days of the Civil War found Mosby serving as a private in the Confederate cavalry. Dissatisfied with conventional military tactics, he grew frustrated watching Southern forces line up in traditional formations, only to be cut down by superior Union firepower. In January 1863, when Confederate General J.E.B. Stuart authorized Mosby to form his own battalion, the 43rd Virginia Cavalry. This wasn't just to be an ordinary military unit. Mosby envisioned something entirely different, a fast-moving, hard-hitting force that would strike where least expected and disappear before the enemy could respond. But could such radical tactics actually work against the well-equipped Union Army? The answer came swiftly. Within weeks, Mosbys Rangers became the nightmare of Union commanders throughout northern Virginia, operating in what became known as Mosby's Confederacy, an area stretching from the Blue Ridge Mountains to the outskirts of Washington, D.C. The Rangers moved like ghosts through the countryside. Their strategy was simple, yet devastating. Strike fast, strike hard, and vanish into the mist. No supply wagons, no permanent camps, just rapid movement and perfect knowledge of the terrain. What made these men so effective wasn't just their tactics, but their very structure. Unlike regular Army units, Mosby's Rangers operated under a unique arrangement. When not on a mission, the men returned to their homes and farms, blending into civilian life. On a cold March night in 1863, Mosby led just 29 men on what would become his most audacious operation. Their target, the headquarters of Union General Edwin Stoughton in Fairfax, Virginia, deep behind enemy lines and surrounded by thousands of federal troops. Riding through darkness, Mosby's small band somehow slipped past Union pickets and patrols. They entered Fairfax unchallenged, using the darkness and their knowledge of Union passwords to move freely among enemy sentries. Arriving at Stoughton's headquarters, Mosby himself entered the building and found the general asleep. The story goes that Mosby slapped the general's bare backside with his glove. The general reportedly asked the startled officer if he had ever heard of Mosby. The groggy officer replied that he had. The general then told him with a smile that Mosby hadn't been caught. Rather, he had caught the officer. In a single night, without firing a shot, Mosby captured a Union general, 2 captains, 30 enlisted men, and 58 horses. When President Lincoln heard the news, he reportedly remarked, "I don't mind the loss of the general so much, but I do hate to lose the horses." This daring raid established Mosby as more than just an annoyance. He became a strategic threat that tied down thousands of Union troops who might otherwise have fought on the front lines. But how did a small-town lawyer develop such military brilliance? Was it innate genius or something he had learned through observation and study? Perhaps we'll never fully understand the mind behind the myth. While many of Mosby's exploits are well documented, one mission stands covered in mystery and contradiction: the Great Gold Raid of 1864. As the war dragged into its 3rd brutal year, Union forces were pushing deeper into Virginia. The Confederacy was bleeding men, supplies, and hope. The Union, meanwhile, needed to pay its troops and suppliers, which required regular shipments of hard currency through contested territory. According to accounts that emerged after the war, Mosby received intelligence in autumn 1864 about a Union pay wagon traveling near Greenback Depot. This wasn't just any supply shipment. It allegedly carried $350,000 in gold and silver coins, along with paper currency. In today's value, that would be worth over $6 million. Did Mosby actually capture this treasure? Some historians doubt the story entirely, suggesting it was a myth that grew in the telling. Others believe the raid happened, but the amount was far less. Yet compelling evidence exists that something significant was captured and subsequently hidden. What we know with reasonable certainty is this: Mosbys Rangers did intercept a Union shipment. Finding themselves pursued by a superior force, they couldn't carry their heavy prize to safety. Faced with impossible choices, Mosby allegedly ordered 2 of his most trusted men to bury the treasure somewhere between Culpeper and Norman's Ford. "I hide it well," he supposedly instructed them. "We'll return when it's safe." But war is cruel and unpredictable. Before Mosby could retrieve his buried fortune, tragedy struck. Have you ever wondered why so many treasure stories end with the secret dying with those who knew it? The tale of Mosby's gold follows this tragic pattern. Within weeks of burying the treasure, both men entrusted with its location were killed in separate engagements with Union forces. One died in a battle near Fairfax. The other was reportedly captured and executed as a spy. With them died the precise knowledge of where the gold was hidden. After the war, Mosby reportedly tried to relocate the treasure. He searched the area where he believed it had been buried, looking for the landmarks his men had described: 2 distinctive trees near a rock formation. But the landscape had changed. Artillery fire had reshaped parts of the countryside. Trees had been cut down for firewood or fortifications. In a letter discovered years later, Mosby wrote, "I have searched extensively but cannot find the exact location. It was buried between 2 trees in a field in northern Virginia. I left it for later, but war waits for no man." Was this a genuine confession of a lost treasure? Or perhaps a clever ruse by a man who had already recovered the gold in secret? Some have even suggested Mosby invented the story to conceal the fact that the gold had been used for the Confederate cause. Whatever the truth, the legend has inspired generations of treasure hunters to scour the Virginia countryside with shovels and metal detectors. Some claim to have found coins or artifacts potentially linked to the treasure. But the main cache, if it ever existed, remains elusive. But what if the story takes an even more unexpected turn? Perhaps the most surprising chapter in Mosby's story came after the guns fell silent. When the Confederacy surrendered in 1865, many Southern leaders fled the country or remained defiant. Some refused to accept defeat, harboring bitter resentment that would poison relations between North and South for generations. Mosby chose a different path, one that shocked his former comrades and even his own family. He became a Republican and supported Ulysses S. Grant, the very general who had commanded the Union forces. This man, who had once been the courage of the Union Army, became a federal employee, serving as the U.S. consul to Hong Kong and working for the Department of Justice. Was this an act of betrayal, as many Southerners claimed? Or was it the action of a pragmatic man who understood that the future required reconciliation rather than continued conflict? Mosby himself was unapologetic. This transformation earned him death threats and social ostracism throughout the South. Former friends crossed the street to avoid greeting him. He received bullets in the mail with his name engraved on them. Could the gold have played a role in this remarkable transformation? Some conspiracy theorists have suggested that Mosby struck a deal with the federal government, information about the gold in exchange for patronage and protection. But no evidence supports this claim, and it seems inconsistent with Mosby's character. The decades following the Civil War saw numerous attempts to locate Mosby's gold. Some searches were methodical. Others were little more than treasure-hunting expeditions, fueled by rumor and optimism. In the 1930s, during the depths of the Great Depression, a farmer near Culpeper reportedly uncovered a small cache of Confederate coins while clearing a field. Were these stragglers from the main treasure, perhaps taken by one of Mosby's men as payment? Or simply coins buried by a worried civilian as Union forces approached? The 1980s brought a new wave of interest when a man hiking along the Rappahannock River found a rusted cavalry saber and a leather pouch containing 3 gold coins. Analysis suggested the items dated from the Civil War era, but nothing definitively linked them to Mosbys Raiders. Then in 2002, a team using ground-penetrating radar located a metallic box near a creek bed in Fauquier County. Excitement turned to disappointment when the box yielded only bullets, uniform buttons, and belt buckles, valuable historical artifacts, but not the legendary treasure. But what if we've been looking in the wrong place all along? Here's where our story takes an unexpected turn. In 1911, 5 years before his death, Mosby granted an interview to a Richmond newspaper. When asked about the legendary gold, he allegedly smiled and said, "Sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight." This cryptic comment has fueled a different theory. What if Mosby never intended to recover the gold? What if its burial was not temporary, but deliberate, a final service to a cause he knew was lost? Consider this possibility. By 1864, many Confederate leaders recognized that defeat was inevitable. The South was exhausted, its resources depleted. Some forward-thinking Confederates began planning for the aftermath, concerned about what would happen when Union forces occupied their lands. What if Mosby's gold wasn't meant to fund the Confederate war effort at all? The evidence for this theory emerged in 1943 when renovation work at a courthouse in Culpeper uncovered a sealed message apparently written in Mosby's hand. The partially damaged document contained instructions for locating something buried for posterity and referenced resources for rebuilding. Unfortunately, moisture had damaged crucial portions of the text, and the specific location details were illegible. If this theory is correct, then the gold might still lie, buried, not lost by accident, but hidden by design, waiting for a time when it could serve its intended purpose. Or perhaps the truth is even more surprising. According to one rarely discussed theory, Mosby may have recovered the gold in secret after the war, not for personal enrichment, but for a cause he believed in. After the Civil War, the South lay in ruins. Infrastructure was destroyed, farms devastated, and thousands of veterans returned home, wounded in body and spirit. The period known as Reconstruction brought further hardships as the region struggled to rebuild. In 1867, a mysterious benefactor funded the construction of a school for freed slaves in Central Virginia. Records show the donor insisted on being silent. Similar anonymous donations established a hospital for Confederate veterans and provided seed money for small businesses throughout the region. Could these acts of charity have been funded by Mosby's recovered gold? Did the Gray Ghost transform from warrior to secret philanthropist? No direct evidence links Mosby to these donations, yet they coincide with periods when Mosby was known to have been in Virginia between his government appointments, and the pattern of giving aligns with his post-war philosophy of rebuilding. If this theory is correct, then the treasure has already served a noble purpose, helping heal the wounds of a divided nation. John Singleton Mosby died on May 30th, 1916, at the age of 82. To the end, he remained controversial, admired by some, reviled by others. He took whatever secrets he possessed to his grave. Today, the legend of Mosby's gold continues to captivate the imagination. Each year, treasure hunters armed with metal detectors and historical maps venture into the Virginia countryside. Local landowners report strangers seeking permission to search their properties. The mythology of buried Confederate treasure has become part of American folklore. But perhaps the real treasure isn't gold at all. "The war is over," he once wrote to a former comrade still nursing grievances. "We have no country but the United States. Let us try to make it a great country." This message, more valuable than any buried gold, speaks across the decades to our own divided times. As our tale draws to a close, we're left with more questions than answers. Did Mosby's treasure ever exist? Was it recovered in secret? Or does it still lie buried in the Virginia soil? Was it a clever ruse or something more meaningful? And that's a wrap. Comment below what part of the story you liked best. Don't forget to check out our previous episodes on Bass Reeves, which is filled with even more plot twists. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.